Part 2, Exercise 1, Working with Styles. We're going to start this exercise by opening a drawing. So we'll go to our Part 2 Class Data folder and open the drawing called Surface Styles. And what we're interested in doing in this exercise is looking at how styles are assigned and how they affect the appearance and behavior of Civil 3D objects. So obviously our subject in this exercise is a surface. So let's take a look at what style is being assigned to this surface right now. So I'm going to select the surface, right click, and go to Surface Properties. And on the Information tab of the Surface Properties dialog, we see the style that's been assigned: contours, 2-foot and 10-foot background. And what we'd like to do is change the style of the object and just kind of see what happens and talk about it a little bit. So we'll change the style to Elevation Banding 2D and click OK. And what we'll see is the appearance of the surface is completely changed. So the first style was a type of style that displayed the contours of the surface. This one displays banding by elevation, and there are other styles that can be configured that show things like tin lines and points and slope arrows and just all kinds of different ways of displaying surface information. Now, if you're coming from Land Desktop, or if you're coming from another program that does the same types of things that Civil 3D does, this may be a completely new concept to you. The idea that you no longer import contours, you no longer import the surface tin lines. In Civil 3D, you just simply change the style of the surface, and if you want to show tin lines, you change it to a style that shows tin lines. If you want to show contours, you change it to a style that shows contours. So just like that, by simply changing the style, you can change the way an object appears and behaves. So you can think of a style as a collection of settings that controls the visibility and behavior of a Civil 3D object. And what's neat about styles is we can have a whole list of them available for a certain type of object and just simply switch between them to get a completely different result out of the data that we're looking at. So what happens if you change the style? In our first part, we changed the style assignment of the object. We changed it from one style to another. What happens if we let this surface be assigned the style of Elevation Banding 2D, but we go in and we modify the Elevation Banding 2D style? We're going to take a look at that next. And what I'll do is I'll right click here and I'll say Edit Surface Style. So now we're looking inside the style itself, and the change we're going to make is we're going to go to the Analysis tab and just make a simple change. Under Elevations, you can see that we're currently displaying the colors in a rainbow theme, and we're going to change that to greens, to follow with the exercise. So we change that to greens and we hit OK, and now we haven't modified the surface, we've modified the style that this surface is referencing. And again, we've drastically changed the appearance of the surface, and consequently, if we were to have other surfaces in this drawing that referenced this same style, they would change too. Which is another neat thing about styles, is you can have dozens of objects or hundreds of objects in your drawing that all reference the same style, and you can make a wholesale change to all of them just by changing the style. So that's a very brief introduction to styles and how they behave and how they affect Civil 3D drawings. Part 2, Exercise 2, Creating a Label Style. So in the last exercise, we looked at how changing the style of an object can change the way it appears or behaves. And now we're going to look at a different kind of style, and we're going to look at actually creating a style kind of from scratch. And the type of style we're going to be working with is a label style. So we've opened our drawing as it's pointed out in our exercise steps, and now we're going to make sure the tool space is visible. It is visible, but if on your computer it's not, you can go to the General menu and say Tool Space, and that'll bring up the tool space for you. And then we'll go to the Settings tab, which I'm on right now, and we're going to go to the Surface section. Under Label Styles, we're going to expand Spot Elevation, because we are going to create a Spot Elevation label style. So we'll right-click the Spot Elevation category and say New, and that's going to bring up our Label Style Composer dialog. And as you can see, there are lots of tabs here, lots of things that we can do. The first place we're going to go is the Information tab, where we'll set the name of our style. And according to the steps in the book, we're going to call it JWEG, and that will be the name of our style. Next, we're going to click on the General tab and assign a layer to labels that are displayed with this style. So what's going to happen is, regardless of what layer the label actually resides on, the style is going to dictate that it displays on the layer that we select. And the layer that we're going to select for this is C Topo Text. So I'll click the cell, click the ellipsis, and then scroll down and find the C Topo Text layer. And I did that kind of quickly. I just want to point out a lot of these controls, when you click on them, you don't see the browse or the ellipsis button until you click the cell, and then the button comes up and lets you launch the dialog that does whatever it is you want to do. So now we'll go to the Layout tab, where we actually compose the label and control what it's going to say. And we'll go straight down here to Contents, but before I go there, I just want to point out you can add a label can consist of multiple components. You can add components here that can be text, lines, blocks, or reference text. You can delete components. Quite frankly, label styles are very, very sophisticated objects, and they can be as complex as you want to make them. We're going to skip right down through and go to the Contents and click the ellipsis there, and that's going to take us to the Content Editor, where we actually control what this label is going to say. So the way this works is we go to the Properties section here, and we click what it is we want to include, in this case surface elevation, and then we set some characteristics for this value. In this case, we're going to set the precision to 2 places past the decimal point. So we've chosen the property, we've chosen some settings about it, and now we're going to click the blue arrow, which pushes it into the code window. And I'll delete the old code, which I actually should have done in the first place. So let me just do that one more time. I've got my surface elevation, I've got my precision set, I click the blue arrow, and it actually writes some code for me, so I don't have to do it myself, that does all the things that I just selected. So we're all set with setting up the code and the contents of the label, what it's actually going to say. We can actually see a preview of it here in the preview window. You can even zoom in on that preview and see what the label is going to look like when it actually is created in the drawing. We'll click on the Drag State tab next, just to take a look at this tab and talk about what it's for. Just about every label in Civil 3D you can drag away from its original location, and the default settings basically say it's going to create a leader back to the original location and possibly rearrange the text, whereas it may in its original form be reading along an object. If you drag it away, it's now going to stack itself and read upright. Now those are all settings that you can control, but basically every label has an initial state and a drag state, and you have a full set of settings for the drag state to control all kinds of things as to what happens when you drag it away from its original position. And then the Summary tab is just a collection of all the settings for all the different components of the label. We've only got one component. If we had 5, then we would see components 1 through 5 here. We've got the information settings like the name. We've got the label settings like what layer is it going on, what text style is it, etc. And we've got our drag state components just like we saw before. So if I expand everything and scroll down through, you really get a feel for just how complex a label style can be. So we'll click OK, and we now have our new label style registered in the Settings tab of Toolspace, and it's ready to be used to label a surface.